Hi there. Welcome to a new edition of Planet Waves TV for Sunday, the 7th of January 2018. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, astrologer for the New York Daily News, the Omega Institute, and Planet Waves FM. Welcome. It is good to be with you. I'm here today inspired by two things. One is an aspect pattern that is developing during the coming week. It peaks Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it's brewing now, and it's been in effect for a good few days. Only we're about to experience the crest of the wave over the next couple of days, and also inspired by the book by Michael Wolff that came out officially at 9 o'clock on Friday morning, called Fire and Fury, a kind of an inside look at the Trump administration. And I have a chart for the official publication of that book as provided conveniently by the publisher. And I'd like to offer, a reading of both charts for you because it's just they're just so interesting and so exciting. And because Planet Waves FM doesn't come out till Tuesday, I'm planning to resume the program on Tuesday. I did want to catch this aspect that is happening right now and into next week. So why don't we start with the chart for the book? And I'm aware this book has been floating around for some days, maybe a week or weeks. It's not like it was manifested in physical form at 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday in Manhattan. But that is the time that the publisher gave as the official time of publication, when it could be like contractually released for retail sale. And I've had a couple of discussions on the internet about whether that chart is valid, because the book has been floating around. It's obviously been an item in the news. Many people have read it. And what I am depending upon here is something that is known as the stated time phenomenon. So there are things that are impossible to time. We don't know when the first book came off the press. We don't know when the author received an advance from the publisher, but we do know that the publisher said in a statement that the publication time would be rolled up, made sooner than the original planned time, which was Tuesday, and the book would be available for retail sale at 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday. The publisher is located in Manhattan. That was yesterday. And so we therefore have a chart that is valid under a certain method of determining when an event actually happens. The real test, of course, is whether the chart describes the thing that it is supposed to be about. That is the ultimate test, right? Is whether the chart fits. And we have both. We have a clearly stated time. I mean, by the publisher spokesperson, 9 a.m. Monday, and they're in Manhattan, Friday rather. And we have a chart that describes something that looks a lot like what is actually happening. And I want to just show you this chart. It's a very exciting chart, and one of the reasons that the chart is so exciting is this conjunction that is in Scorpio. This is a conjunction of Mars and Jupiter, and it is quite exact. Mars is at 17 degrees 1 arc minute. Jupiter is at 17 degrees 41, so it's less than 1 degree, and Mars is the faster moving planet, and it's what's called applying to Jupiter. So when a faster moving planet is in an aspect to another planet and it is applying, that means that the event is happening or about to happen, and it is like the anticipation before the exact moment of something. So the energy is still building at the time of the release of this book. And this is the most exact aspect in the chart. And one of the reasons that this chart is so exciting, or what horary astrologers call radical, meaning representative, meaning basically descriptive of the situation and something that goes to the root of the matter, is because we have this most exciting event in the chart, Mars conjunct Jupiter, with many other things happening at once, taking place in the ninth house of publishing. So there are 12 houses indicated by these little slices of existence, you might say, and this particular house, house number 9, with Scorpio on the cusp, is the house of publishing. It is house number 9. We'll put a little number 9 in there so that we're reminded that it is the ninth house. So there's a big thing happening in the ninth house, and this book has already sold millions of copies, and it's sold out, and you can hear the printing press roaring all the way here in Kingston, New York, and they're selling a lot of copies. And more than that, the book is having an impact because it is a summation of all the madness and insanity that we have been seeing, and it's doing something in a form that only a book can do, which is to present the whole scenario in a cohesive form. And this is an interesting demonstration of the impact of the book as a medium. Now, we do a lot of media studies at Planet Waves, and we've been looking at the internet a lot. And one of the things that I have not talked much about as a point of what you might think of as a foundational kind of underpinning of our reality is the importance of the book in our reality as a way of, first of all, demonstrating that something is true, and one of the reasons that it seems more true in a book is the cohesiveness of a book. We are accustomed to getting our news and our information in the form of these little 140 now 280-bit snippets on Twitter, which is the perfectly fragmented mind of Donald Trump's favorite way of communicating. And then there's Facebook, and then there's email, and then that alone is a form of fragmentation, having all these different methods of communicating all the time, where there is no one that seems to be kind of truer or better or more believable than the other. It's all kind of one huge mess. But the book, unlike the internet, has a presumption of being true. So if the medium is the message, one medium of the message of the internet is, gee, this whole thing may be complete and total bullshit. And if the medium of the book has a message, it is that this has been checked out carefully, and what we see in a book we presume to be true. And this is something about the medium quality, the tangibility of a book, the care, the time that is put into a book, the fact-checking, the expense associated in producing a book, unlike the expense associated in putting together a blog, and also the fact that the type in a book, the text in a book itself is conveying a kind of a message. Now, no one is thinking about this, and they think, wow, a book, this is on paper. Obviously, it is true. While something fleeting by on your fleeting by on your little digital ball and chain is not true because it just is fleeting by. But the message of the medium of the internet is bullshit, and the message of the medium of the book is this is real. So this book came out, and it also, between its two covers, encapsulates all the madness that we've been hearing about, that we've been thinking about, that we've been witnessing and seeing and hearing and speculating and imagining is happening, including the total dysfunction and the chaos and the disloyalty that is unfolding inside the four walls of the White House and inside the Trump family, and unlike any other presidential administration in history, this is the first administration where the fam has been brought in, where the son and the daughter and the daughter's husband and all this have all been given these important roles that no one knows quite what they all do inside the administration. I mean, the exception, and it was considered a serious potentially serious problem was when President Kennedy's brother, Bobby, was the Attorney General. And I believe there had to be a law passed or an exception to a rule made, or there may have been a rule made in response to that later where that was considered a form of nepotism, but it was allowed to stand because Kennedy had credibility, and so did Bobby Kennedy. Admittedly, politicians, but they had credibility. Now, that's the one exception, and it was a big deal at the time. Now we've got the whole bunch of these people thrown in the White House, and it very much is a family affair. So let's take another look at what this chart is saying about this book and what the implication is. And in a way, we don't have to look much past the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter. Now, doing this kind of astrology, we're going to veer right into advanced astrology. Planets represent things, and they can represent different things. The same planet can represent different things in different charts, depending upon the house where the sign, and depending upon the house where the sign lines up, or to be specific, Scorpio is on the 9th house cusp. This is house 9. It begins here. Scorpio is on the cusp, and the ruler of Scorpio is Mars. And in classical astrology, which is the astrology that I use first, right? Pluto is said to be the ruler of Scorpio in modern astrology, but let's stick to classical for the moment. Okay, and so the ruler of the publisher and the act of publication is Mars, and it's in Scorpio, so it's intense. And Mars is what's called in its domicile. Mars rules Scorpio, so it's in the sign that it rules. The presidency is represented by the 10th house. Executive power, accountability, responsibility, all the way to the top. That's the theme of the 10th house. And that's got Sagittarius on the cusp. The ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, and Jupiter and Mars are in a conjunction, and the conjunction is in Scorpio. And when you're evaluating a conjunction, the question is, which planet is stronger in that sign? Because that's how you determine who kind of wins the game of the conjunction. And clearly Mars is the stronger planet because Mars is in its domicile, and Jupiter is not in its domicile. Jupiter has no special dignity in Scorpio, except if you stretch it and say that Scorpio is a water sign and Jupiter rules Pisces also, but we're not talking about Jupiter as the ruler of Pisces. So, in the name of this conjunction, Mars, publisher, meets Jupiter, president, in the 9th house on the home turf of the publishing business. Mars wins, and Mars is winning. Mars is winning this game because this has done what I believe is irreparable damage to Trump and the Trump administration. My statement here, my thesis, is that this event is the watershed moment in the downfall of Trump. Now, Trump may hold on. He may still be president for a while. But this is the watershed moment. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for, basically. All right, let's look at a few other things that are going on here, including looking at how this chart develops. Because when you have a chart, the planets are all moving, and then you get to examine how it develops. So actually, let's go back and check two other salient points. First of all, when you have an event chart, the first thing you want to check is the ascendant. What is the condition of the ascendant? And the ascendant is here in Aquarius, and the south node is rising. And the south node can represent a kind of unraveling. It can represent the undoing of something. And so the very nature of this question is an undoing. This whole thing, and there's only one thing being undone, right now, and that thing being undone is Trump and the Trump administration. This whole pack of lies and dysfunction and insanity and disrespect, and the fact that we have an admitted sexual abuser in the nation's top position, when all kinds of guys lower down the rung, various chiefs of Fox News, the president's personal addiction, and various other people and male entities throughout the media and politics have all been kicked out of their positions for doing sometimes more and sometimes a lot less than what Trump so far has gotten away with. But the thing here is that there will be reckoning. I'm not that big on making open predictions and saying like this will happen, but there will be reckoning, and I believe there will be reckoning before our nation, becomes Germany in the 1930s. So have faith and keep leaning on this. Our thoughts, our discussion, this YouTube, your post to Facebook, you're just tweeting, I'm pissed off at Trump. It actually does make a difference. So, all right, back to this chart. All right, so south node of the moon rising here in Aquarius. The question itself is one of an unraveling. All right, then in any event chart or horary chart, you want to check the moon and see what the moon is doing. And here is why I think that there is something important going on with the matter of the harasser in chief. I've got it in there. The moon is at 3 degrees of Virgo. And so, for one thing, the moon is early in its sign, and that means that this ball is in play. It is the beginning of the inning. It's not it's going to be an exciting inning that's going to happen. And the inning ends when the moon changes signs and enters Libra. So astrology is very much a 12-inning game following the moon around. And one thing we check in event astrology and horary astrology is what is the next thing that the moon is going to do. And the moon is going to make an opposition to this little guy here, this centaur planet called Nessus. And Nessus is a centaur planet. It's the third centaur. Chiron came first, 1977. Pholus came second in 1992. A long gap between those two. And then 1 year later, the third centaur was discovered, and that was Nessus. And Nessus is a centaur associated with sexual consequences. It is the return of karma. Nessus is about the boomerang coming back and depending on who the person who threw the boomerang is and what the person did, whacking the person who threw the boomerang. And so what we have here is a nifty, just get out my arts and crafts supplies, nifty, it's already drawn in, opposition between the moon and Nessus, and the opposition is applying. Meaning, it hasn't happened yet. This is how you time things in astrology. You look at what has happened, what is happening, and what is about to happen, and then you follow the moon all the way at the end, and you see you take it to the end of the story, which we'll do in a second. So the moon is applying to Nessus. There are about to be consequences, and we're seeing them and feeling them and noticing them already. So we have someone whose credibility is completely destroyed to the extent that he had any credibility prior to this time. As the author said when confronted by an NBC reporter who said, "Well, what do you say about the fact that Trump says that you have no credibility?" to the author, Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff said, "Well, this is an accusation made by a person who has less credibility than any person who's ever walked on Earth," is how he said it. And I think that Michael Wolff is probably a prick, but I'm really proud of him for pulling this stunt off, which included months months of getting access to the White House, apparently signed off on by Steve Bannon, where he was invited into the White House and sat there on a little table in a conference room or on a couch and just sat there and recorded interviews for months with people coming and going in the White House. He had a permanent press pass and was able to do this. It's astonishing. Okay. Now, Fire and Fury book chart, one or two other points. Where do we find the writer? Well, there's two ways to look at the second, third, at who the writer is. Let's take this way. The third house is the house of writing. So the ninth is the house of publishing, and the third is the house of writing. So it's kind of a sensible arrangement of the houses. You write in the third and you publish out in the ninth. And here is the third house. It has Taurus on the cusp, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and we go and look for Venus, and we find that Venus is way out in the open, out here, out in the most public house, the 11th house, and it is about to be conjunct the sun. Venus is moving quicker. This is very exciting. This is going to be big, and this author is now basically permanently established as a kind of authority on all matters relating to Trump, and he's basically taken over. This has been a one person takeover, or a kind of I'm thinking of this in some ways as the revenge of the book. You know, the internet is completely screwed up reality. And yes, it's giving me the ability to come into your home or onto your phone and speak to you and all this stuff. But it's really messed with people. And one of the reasons people think that this whole thing is so okay is because their minds are so screwed up by the internet. And we have Trump tweeting threats of nuclear war and threatening, basically running the country through a Twitter account. And in the midst of that, the book has come back and basically clocked him on the head. And we're all getting a taste of the power of the book. This is very important. In many ways, it is the thing missing from our reality, is the power of the book. And now we're having the missing experience, as called in some forms of therapy. So let's set this chart aside for a second. We see many things going on, including a lot going on in public up here in Capricorn. Let's now change charts to this chart for when all of these planets associated with this whole thing line up, and they line up. But now, basically, through the week, and so the Mars-Jupiter conjunction holds for a little while because Mars is not going that fast at the moment, and Jupiter is not going that fast. So the conjunction holds for a couple of days, and at the same time, Venus catches up with the Sun, and the Sun and Venus are all applying to Pluto, the second slowest moving planet in the chart. And Jupiter is applying in a sextile to Pluto, which has the higher number. Mars is fast. It is applying to the planet with the higher number, Pluto. The Sun is applying to Pluto. Venus is applying to Pluto. We've got 4 planets simultaneously applying in an aspect to Pluto, and Pluto kind of is almost like a spindle that kind of in a way holds together a certain process in the world, which is the process of progress and growth on the deepest level. And Pluto is in a long trip through Capricorn. It just passed the halfway mark in Capricorn, and it's just doing its thing and hanging out there. And then one by one, over the next kind of 36 to 48 hours, one planet after the next is going to make an aspect to Pluto, whether a conjunction or a sextile. This is very unusual to have this kind of alignment of planets, all in this 1 degree range. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. So this is, again, this is a watershed moment. And we have to be the ones who hold people who need to be held to account, people who abuse their power and hurt people and critters, and the pot business, in the case of Jeff Sessions, who's completely full of shit. Except we can thank him for Bob Mueller. Now, speaking of Bob Mueller, in the background of all of this, there is an investigation by something called the Special Counsel. Now, people may not know, you may not know what this thing called the Special Counsel is. It used to be called the Special Prosecutor. And I believe that when this law was rewritten at some point in the 1990s, that it was rewritten to be called the Special Counsel, which is an attorney, not the Special Prosecutor, as a way to obscure what this is. Bob Mueller is a prosecutor. He's like the district attorney of your county, or a federal prosecutor, only he is the top federal prosecutor. And the way that he got his job was, the top federal prosecutor is a guy named Jeff Sessions. Hold on one second. Jeff Sessions, the newspaper I write for, and I'm proud to write for, because they're so on it and they're so damn funny. And this guy Isaac Lopez came up with this graph, and this guy Dan Johnson wrote the headline, and it's just frameable art. This will be framed in my office soon. So here's Jeff Sessions. And Jeff Sessions, this little kind of mental runt from, I forget what state, Alabama, I think, is the nation's top prosecutor. He is the district attorney for the United States of America, Jeff Sessions. The problem is Jeff Sessions lied about talking to the Russians during the campaign. He lied to Congress about this, and he had contact with the Russians when he said he didn't, and he lied, and therefore he had to recuse himself from being the prosecutor in the investigation of whether Trump and the Trump administration and all these people committed crimes. So he had to recuse himself, and he stepped down. And his deputy, Rod Rosenstein, did the right thing and named a special prosecutor in the form of Bob Mueller III, the former director of the FBI for 12 years, appointed by Bush, kept on by Obama. Then he quit, and then Jim Comey got the job, but Trump fired Jim Comey. So they had to name a special prosecutor called the Special Counsel. They had to name one. And that's Bob Mueller. And this is a problem. Personally, maybe I'm deceived. Maybe I'm a patriotic kid or whatever. I think Mueller is for real. I think that he is actually concerned that crimes have been committed. And even Steve Bannon, one of the top supporters of Trump, said that the collusion with the Russians was treasonous and unpatriotic. So Sessions, the nation's top prosecutor, who, by the way, is trying to roll back pot weed killer. Isn't that great? And it's a funny pun on killer weed. And then when you go to the article, even better headline, Grim Reefer. They're very funny headline writers there. I want to go there one night while they're writing this stuff and watch them brainstorm. He's a crook. He's a liar, and he couldn't be in his job, and that's why Trump is being stalked by a special prosecutor, and the special prosecutor is closing in. You can tell by the 4 indictments, and 2 of them have resulted in guilty pleas based on cooperation, based on spilling the beans. And they have interviewed everyone. They've got Heather Hicks, who's been interviewed, and all the children are going to be interviewed, and it's going to be crazy. It's going to be the greatest political show of our lifetimes. And I have to say, it's a lot more fun than the whole Nixon scene. That was very grim and very serious. There was very little sense of humor about it, and Nixon really had more credibility. He was more articulate. He was much more intelligent than Donald Trump. So he was better able to handle himself, except, when he started firing his entire Justice Department in an effort to get rid of the special prosecutor, Leon Jaworski, who was after him. So if Trump fires Mueller, they'll be building a gallows. Now, one more little thing to keep in mind here is this here's Mr. Pluto at 1902 of Capricorn, and this here is Miss Eris at 2246 of Aries. Eris moves a lot slower than Pluto. Eris takes 551 years, I think, to go around the sun. Pluto takes 250. So Eris takes more than double Pluto to go around the sun. So Pluto is applying in a square to Eris, and that square is going to go on for years and years and years. And it's associated with the Pluto return in the United States chart. Pluto's right around 24 degrees in the United States chart. We are experiencing a major mutual aspect, Pluto square Eris, and the Pluto return of the United States of America. I will have more for you in future editions of Planet Waves TV. Don't miss Planet Waves FM, resuming on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I am also in this office today working on The Art of Becoming, the 2018 annual edition of Planet Waves. I've kind of caught up. I got a late start. I made sure I took a few days off for the holidays, which I never really do, and this year I had to. It's just been such a crazy, wild couple of years that I thought I'm gonna rest up a little bit and get a grip on myself and hang out with some friends, and that's what I did. And so I'm looking at having The Art of Becoming to you as promised in the month of January. That's when we always promise the annual edition. I want to get it done as much as anybody wants to see it, and I've got to be a disciplined writer. I have, for the first time, am writing the annual edition with a daily horoscope going. That is an extra. The daily horoscope is an extra 3,000 words of writing a week. An extra 3,000 words of writing. This is what it looks like in the New York Daily News. I have to tell you, it was one of the dreams, the dream of my career, to be a horoscope writer in a major metropolitan daily newspaper, and I figured it was never going to happen. There's not that many major metropolitan daily newspapers, and you can't really count on people to make good choices, and there's a million astrologers out there and all this stuff. Well, I didn't count myself out, but I did get the job. So all by way of saying, don't count yourself out. If you have some dream, if you want to stand up there and play bass next to Eric Clapton, practice and make sure people know who you are and what you're doing. So all of that said, thank you for watching this now 33-minute video. Thank you, Anatoly and Kate in the Ukraine, for producing this video rapidly overnight, and to Amanda Painter and Amy Elliott for covering for some of my most visible columns, my essay columns in Planet Waves. Thank you for your patience and paying attention and being a friend of Planet Waves. Good to be with you. I'll catch you another time. Bye for now.